because we 2.2% of us are farmers. Because they have put it on our mind that farming is way down on the totem pole. Ain't got no status, a farmer with overalls on. But see how they manipulate our thinking. Them same overalls, they'll take down to Saks Fifth Avenue and sell it to y'all for $75, $100. We have lost the land. We depend on white folks to feed us. We don't grow the food, we don't process the food, we don't even sell the food. Hear me, if white folks decided that black folks weren't going to eat anymore, we would not eat. We depend on white folks to clothe us. We don't make any clothes. We don't design any clothes. White folks tell us what to wear. The most funny designers in New York, they do, in Europe. They tell the young sisters and the older sisters that the skirts this season will be up to here. So the sisters run down to Fields and I Magnum and Saks, and then they got a Lord and Taylor in Chicago, and buy them little old dresses that make the brothers' eyes turn. The next season, what do they tell them? The skirts gonna be down to here. And because you have been taught to be fashionable, you run right back to the same white-owned stores and buy the long skirts. Now that is a slave mentality. We depend on somebody else to make us high. We don't distill no booze, but we naturally buy it. We spend more than $4 billion a year on booze. And booze will naturally put a shackle on your mind. It is unknown how much money we spend for drugs. Now, booze is a drug too. But I'm talking about the other kind of drugs now. You know, the marijuana and the H and the angel dust and the pills. We have no idea how much money we spend on drugs, which not only put shackles on your mind, but they put the death nail on your minds. The point here, brothers and sisters, is that we have permitted those shackles on our minds to remain on our minds so long that we depend on another alien oppressive culture for just about everything. Finally, we depend on white folks to inform and entertain us. I'm not talking about school now. I'm talking about the media of mass communications. And that is probably the most devastating institution in American life. Newspapers, radio, television, movies, phonograph records. You have no idea the impact the media have on our minds. I told y'all I lived in the ghetto of Chicago, 37th and King Drive. Hardly a night goes by at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning I'm not awakened by some brother walking down the street with his transistor turned all the way up. Now they used to carry them about like that. Then they start getting bigger. Now, the brothers are carrying, they are so big and so heavy, they've got belt straps to strap over their shoulder. They cannot exist without what they call their sounds. But what are those sounds? And who is manipulating the messages and the images and the symbols that come through those sounds? A few months ago, I don't know what they playing now, because I just absolutely, but I was doing a study of them for one of my classes. And a few months ago, the sounds were Shake Your Booty, Let's Make a Baby, Take That Funk Out of My Face. Y'all know them, because y'all used to listen to them. But you see, you laugh, but you don't understand what that's doing to the minds of young black people. While that radio was blasted about Let's Make a Baby, this is 80, in 1979, for the first time, more black babies were born out of wedlock than were born to married couples. Just think of that. More black babies were born out of wedlock than were born to married couples. And more than half of them were born to teenage girls and sub-teenage girls, 11, 12. Babies having babies. And all that's coming over the airwaves, all that the young black children are listening to is Let's Make a Baby. The Telephone Man, you remember the Telephone Man? Screwing everywhere, on the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor. Everywhere you could think of that you can't screw, he was screwing. And all of those messages and images and symbols were impacting upon the minds of our young. Now, who decides what those messages, images, and symbols are? There are 8,000 radio stations in this country. 152 are black owned out of 8,000. And 2 years ago, it was less than 50. But even those that are black owned are a little different from those that are white owned. Because the owners have got shackles on their minds. WVON in Chicago is not black owned. It is owned by one of the largest media conglomerates in the world, WVON. Y'all know what VON stands for? Huh? Voice of the Negro. That's what it stands for. So the white dude is saying, I am your voice. And indeed he is. Because he decides what happens at VON. Because he owns it. WJPC, owned by Johnson Publishing Company, which is black. Ain't no difference between the records that come over VON and the records that come over JPC. Television. There are 800 and, something over 800 television stations in the country. 3 years ago, there weren't any owned by black folks. Now there are 4. Don't make no difference. Because those who own them probably graduated from Iowa State University. And their minds are messed up. So the same old stuff comes over the television. JJ scratching his head. And the Jeffersons, and Sanders and Son, and you name them. I don't even know who they are. But those messages and images and symbols are messages which are put into our minds and the minds of everybody who listens, not by us. And they put roots on television. Black folks just were ecstatic. They thought the heavens had closed in on them. But they never stopped to analyze roots, which was the most insidious piece of propaganda that ever hit the television screen, and it was viewed by more people in the whole history of television. Let me just talk about movies, and I've run over my time. Y'all remember so-called black movies? I think they've run their course now. Thank God. But you must understand why black movies came into being. 2 reasons: money and control minds. Now, I know how black movies got started. I wasn't there, but there's some things you know. You just know. Now, you can't prove it, but you know it. What happened was there was some young, bright, white dude, college graduate, who went to his boss one day and said, "Boss, I know how we can save the company." MGM, it was going bankrupt. Television had come into being. Just turn television on. You don't have to pay $3 and go outside and watch a movie. Stay at home. Put your feet up on a chair, drink some beer, and watch the movie or whatever was on television. And the movie industry was on the verge of bankruptcy. He said to his boss, "Niggas are hungry for recognition. They are thirsty for revenge." He said, "I know if we can dream us up a super nigga and put him on the screen and let him just beat up white folks and kill white folks and get away with it," he said, "niggas will come see that." He said, "Cool. Try it out." And because white people know us so well, you see, when you put the shackles on their minds, you control them. You know them. And they knew very well that we were not going to sit down and figure it out. So, that's why they told us in front what they were going to do to us. And that's why they named that character Shaft. They told us that they were going to shaft us, which is precisely what they did. They put Richard Roundtree on the screen, paid him $12,500. They paid Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million for a movie. They paid Richard Burton $12,500 to do that first Shaft movie. And he just ran all over the screen, beating up white folks, killing white folks, getting away with it. And y'all just flock to the Loop, or wherever you live, to see it. And after Shaft was so successful, the whole flood of so-called black movies came down upon us. And y'all were downtown just standing in line all the way around that white man's theater, giving him $3, then it went up to $3.50, now it's $4. That was in the day before Mayor Daley died. There were so many of y'all down in the Loop for For y'all that don't know Chicago, Loop is downtown Chicago. There were so many of y'all in the Loop that Mayor Daley had to order them to turn up the street lights because it was so dark in the Loop. And in the first year and a half, y'all gave those folks $187 million to see Shaft and Truck Turner and the Mac and Superfly. And if you ever think that the media mass communication does not work on the minds of our black people, you just think back to Superfly. Because when Superfly hit the screens, the next thing you saw was them young brothers making it down to another hunky, Smokey Joe. Right down there on State Street. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Buying all them old funny-looking clothes. Trying to look like and act like Superfly. Because the movie Superfly was designed to put a certain message and image on the minds of those young black brothers. That if I look like Superfly, act like Superfly, I got it made, baby. And then, the coup de grace. I went to college. Coup de grace. After Superfly and all them old funny-looking clothes, the next thing you saw them young brothers doing was walking down the street wearing high-heel shoes. Why did they put it on his mind to wear them high-heel shoes? Because, brothers, white men run this country. White men run this country. Not white folks, white males, men. That's why the white women so upset these days with this women live mess, because they just putting them down. But when the day of reckoning will come, if it comes, it's going to have to be a reckoning between a white man and a black man. I sure ain't gonna send my woman out to do my fighting. The man has got to confront the man. So, if he shackles the young brother's minds to the point that he cannot emerge from malehood into manhood, he ain't gonna never be confronted. High-heel shoes and bags slung over their shoulder and ruffled shirts and pink coats, and you couldn't tell them from women. So if you dress like a woman, ain't nowhere in the world you will ever think like a man. And as long as you don't think like a man, see, a man is a psychological concept. You're a man when you take them shackles off your mind and can look the enemy straight in the eye and say, don't do it. And see, then they'll call you a crazy nigga. Because down south in the old days, there was always one crazy nigga. And that was the nigga when the white folks came riding onto his property. He met them with a shotgun. He said, don't come no further. And they saw something in his eyes. And then finally one of them looked at us and said, Joe, he's crazy, nigga, let's go. Well, what do you do about this? How do you take the shackles off your minds? There are 2 or 3 things I'll drop on you, then I got to quit. I'm going almost an hour. First thing you do, brothers and sisters, is to learn. everything you can. Everything you can. Don't be caught up by anybody say, well, that's a hunky course. You don't not take that. Ain't no such thing as a hunky course. Knowledge is universal. And the more you learn, the more you're able to sort out the wheat from the chaff. C-H-A-F-F. Although it could be S-H-A-F-T. But you don't know when you're being shafted unless you've built a storehouse of knowledge so that when the shaft comes at you, you can say, now, wait a minute, something wrong here. And that doesn't mean that you go argue with your teacher. You know, you start confronting your teacher and arguing with your teacher, you ain't gonna never get no passing grade. But you know, and you say, now, wait a minute, and run to the library and see if they got a book in there by Chancellor Williams, or see if they got a book in there by Carter G. Woodson, or a book by, Autobiography of Malcolm X, or somebody. So you can check it out. And you say, I didn't think he was coming straight. You don't run back. You call your brothers and sisters together and say, now look, brothers and sisters, here's what I have discovered. Check this out. Now, Professor so-and-so said so-and-so, but here it is. Learn. Number 2, you must take the knowledge that you get and use it in the interest of the struggle of your people. It does no good. It does no good for you to graduate and get a job in Goldblatt's and start talking about weed. It does no good for you to graduate and get yourself a job on the New York Times and then write anything that them editors tell you to write. It does not do any good for you to get your education and become a teacher and miseducate your children. The answer, my brothers and sisters, is that power comes out of institutions. Institutions. And one reason why the shackles remain on our minds is that we don't have institutions anymore. So it's up to you to build some institutions. Build some schools where we teach our children. You don't find no Jews sending their children to get educated by Arabs. Jews educate their own. We must educate our own. Take your skills and build an economic institution. And use that economic institution to hire some black people and to build an economic base. Use that liberating education to build some political institutions so that you don't have to live under the thumb of a Mayor Daley and under the thumb of the most, I don't even know how to describe the woman, Jane Byrne. And no point in it. And I close with a quotation from Carter G. Woodson. Y'all know who Carter G. Woodson was? Oh, yeah. How many of y'all know who Carter G. Woodson was? Handful of you. And it only proves my point. You don't know who Carter G. Woodson was because they don't want you to know who Carter G. Woodson was. Y'all know who George Washington was. Y'all know George Washington never told a lie. Y'all know that. But you don't know who Carter G. Woodson was. The father of black history. The man who started what used to be called Negro History Week, now we call it Black History Week or Black History Month. We call it Black Liberation Month. The reason why they don't want you to know about him is because he wrote stuff like this. He said, if you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. Ain't that profound? If you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or to go yonder. He will find his proper place and he will stay in it. If you control a man's thinking, Carter G. Woodson said, you do not have to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, Woodson wrote in The Miseducation of the Negro that if you go to the back door, and if he don't see no back door, he will cut one out. Now that is the power of the shackles on your mind. My challenge to you tonight is, when do you start removing them? Thank you, and I'll take questions. All right, any questions? Thank you very much. Questions, comments, debates? Yeah.
I got one question. You were talking about how, like a situation here at Iowa State, there's 22,000 students, 1,000 of them are black. How does somebody, especially from someplace like Chicago, deal with something like that? Especially if you're from, when you're from an area where there's a lot of blacks, how do you deal with coming to a school like Iowa State?
All right. Very good question. But my answer is going to be a long-range question. What you do is one thing, but what you do for those who are going to come behind you is something else. What you do is what I've already said. Come up here, understand that this is a fount of knowledge. Drink from it. Learn. Don't get upset because a bunch of the other brothers are into some kind of a social thing, and I'm not saying this, you got to, learn every day. You study Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Take Saturday night and, have a set so you can relax, unwind. Sunday, go right on back to the routine. Did y'all see the paper chase? How many of y'all saw the paper chase? You see, we imitate white folks in all the wrong ways. See, the sisters start putting their old green and blue mess on their eyes, and they wear them old long white folks wigs. See, and we just imitate the wrong things. But in the paper chase, those white boys got through law school with either Yale or Harvard. I've forgotten which one. Huh? Harvard? How did they get through? They formed study groups, and they helped each other through. John, you in charge of torts. You learn everything in the world about torts. And Jim, you in charge of civil contracts. Phil's in charge of crime, whatever. And then they'd meet in them study groups, and the students who were weak in torts, and John had to shore him up because John had become the expert in the torts class. Somebody else, you understand what I mean? And you remember the scene I think it was toward the end when they were cramming for the exams, and they went up in the motel? They didn't go up in the motel for no hanky-panky. They went up in the motel, locked the door, and studied endlessly. After 2 or 3 days, the hotel manager became suspicious. What are they doing up there? They ain't been out of the room. And they were up there getting ready for that exam. That's the spirit you got to bring to Ames or anywhere else you go. Understand that you are on a mission. And in a very real sense, you are one of a few on this mission. Because you know what's left behind. The brothers and the sisters in the ghetto are a pitiful lot. They're hung out on drugs. hung out on food stamps, hung out on welfare. They are prostituting to make it. Ain't got no job. It is a trip out there. In 3 weeks, I had my pocket picked. Somebody came down in the basement where my office is and stole my stereo. And then my back windshield of my car just shattered. They say it was the atmosphere. I don't know, but it's tough out there. So consider yourself privileged for being here, but don't think that just because you're here and when you leave here, you're going to turn your back on your brothers and sisters.
Do you find the same thing when you go out, like in the job situation you're talking about?
Exactly. Exactly. When you go on a job, brother, go on a job with the same mission that you came to school with, to learn. Why is it that CBS is so powerful? Y'all got any idea how powerful CBS is? See, y'all think CBS is Channel 2 in Chicago. Let me give you some idea what CBS is. CBS owns 5 television stations, 7 AM radio stations, and 7 FM radio stations. They own Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston. Y'all know what that is? You ought to. They make textbooks. Popular Library paperbacks, Gold Medal paperbacks, Crest paperbacks, Winston Press, BFA Educational Media, W.B. Saunders Professional Books, Nisi, Latin American and Spanish books. They're going to get all of them. They own Field and Stream Magazine, Road and Track, Cycle World, World Tennis, SEA, Pickup Van and 4WD, 4-wheel drive, Mechanics Illustrated, and Women's Day. In addition, CBS publishes about 55 magazines that appear annually and semi-annually. That is CBS, a monster. If they don't get you on the radio,